Ready?
Yeah, I'm live. Oh, I got hat head. All right, greetings. Hey, this is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres, and this is going to be our Wednesday evening show. This is going to be our live stream call-in. Only you can't call in; you have to type in question and answer session. And I've been wondering what this is going to be like when I get to a day when I'm not feeling well. And that's today. I just don't feel well. I think about half the school is out, and we have a student here that goes to school, and he brought something home, and everybody kind of got it. I mean, I don't feel terrible. I've just been sleeping a lot today, and I just feel tired. So I get up and do something, and then come in, sit for a second, warm up, and then I'd fall asleep. But I will be through it. I'm not worried about it. Lately, we've been talking a little bit about the tribe and about this Wednesday night show. And I think what we're going to want to do, because we don't know where it's going to go, but I have an idea that wherever it goes, we'd like it to be a much bigger entity. All right. So if you believe in this and you're with us on this journey, what you can do is to share it and then contribute in the way of, just speaking, ask questions, comments, things like that. And, and then share it with your friends. That would really be helpful. After it's done, it goes on the YouTube channel, the Baker's Green Acres YouTube channel, and it's archived there, and it can be shared from there. Now, that would be really helpful because, see, what we're up against here is YouTube and Facebook. They have algorithms, I guess, and when you get to a certain point, there's a certain amount of popularity in your presentations, your content, then they unthrottle you. So right now we're kind of being throttled, and I don't really think it's because we talk about the Constitution or we kill animals or anything like that. I really refuse to believe that. I think it has to do with the fact that we have a lot of subscribers, but we're not getting the daily or the weekly interaction that we need. So this is where you guys get to help me in the unlocking the key to the algorithm thing by sharing and contributing and all that stuff. So it'd really help out a lot. So please do that. And then subscribe. Yeah, subscribe to Baker's Green Acres. Also become a friend of Baker's Green Acres Facebook page and the Anyone Can Farm tribe page if you're not already a friend there. Okay, so that'd be real helpful. Thank you very much. I've been talking a little bit in the past couple of weeks since I came back from the Rogue Food Conference about what comes down to food freedom. And food freedom has to do with producers, and it has to do with the users of our products. And you may say, well, we have total food freedom. We can eat anything we want and we can produce anything we want. That's not exactly true. And there's a lot of little things along the way. And I am not here to give you the silver bullet on that, because part of it is a systemic thing. If we had true food freedom, anything that you can think of, you could produce, and then you could share that with your friends, colleagues, neighbors, whatever. You could sell it. Right now, it's not quite like that. And a lot of what we come up against is perception. People perceive that things are illegal, right? In order for something to be illegal, it has to go against a law, right? And when we're talking food, the laws around food are kind of nebulous, and that is part of the problem. And I think that's kind of done on purpose to keep people like unsure of what they can do. I mean, you're afraid of that knock at the door, And I've had that happen a lot of times, and every time it happens, it's never anything really too bad. I mean, I'm still here. It's not like they haul you away or anything. They don't really even threaten to haul you away. They usually just tell you, hey, you can't do that because we said so. So we've opened up the conversation, and I think we have to continue on this and figure out what's real and what's not real. And I don't know, it's going to take a while. I am a big proponent of the U.S. Constitution as the supreme law of the land, and I talk about the Fifth Amendment a lot, where it says our life, liberty, and property is protected under due process of law, right? And the entities that try to choke food production and things of that nature usually are not lawmaking entities. So we really have to figure out where we've come down on that, if we're going to comply with those things or not. And here I don't have any licenses anymore. I don't have any permission slips from anybody to do what I do. Like, I didn't have to apply to the FCC to come on the air tonight and talk to you about how I feel about things. I just did it. And I make no apologies for it. This is protected speech under the First Amendment, and I'm going to do it. And even if somebody tells me I can't do it, I'm going to do it. Because usually the first 2 or 3 people that tell you can't do it are full of baloney. That's just the way it is. Just the way it is. All right. So I don't have a lot to say about that tonight. I want to get on to the question and answer part of this. I have my trusty assistant standing by here. She's a tired girl today too. And so let's go. Let's get some questions going, and I will try and fire myself up out of the funk that I'm in. I will tell you this though. People are getting this flu around here, and it's putting them in the hospital. But our systems, because of the food that we eat, are very good. They're not weakened systems. And the worst that's happened to me is I've gotten a little bit of a headache, so I know something's going on. Probably a fever, didn't take a temp, and I'm tired. So my body is saying, hey, slow down, fall down, cover yourself up with a blanket, and I get up and I'm okay, But I know this flu that's going around is nasty. They've closed the school down for the rest of the week here. And so, I'm not saying you're not going to get sick, but if your system is healthy and you've been putting good stuff in it, you have a lot less to overcome to get back to health. All right.
Lone Star says, yeah.
Eat some biochar. I see that. Yeah. Well, it's not a bad idea, really. Maybe I will. I tell you what, I will. Go get me some biochar. Eat it right on camera. Biochar is some pretty wild stuff, Lone Star, I'll tell you. If you put a bowl of it on the table and have your friends over to eat, they will pick it up and fool around with it and knock it on the table and everything. It's just humans are drawn to it. And now that you mention that, I got a bit of a hankering for biochar right about now. So maybe after we're done here, I'll go grab me some. I use biochar for a lot of things. We have a grill out and back, and I really like grilled grass-fed beef. Oh, I love it. So I use my biochar to do that, Doesn't put any smoke flavor in it because it really doesn't make much smoke. But it's good stuff. I'm going to repair the retort that I have, and I want to make a lot more biochar this summer and just have a big supply of it. I'm really interested in the overall fertility of this piece of land that I am farming. I'm really interested in that. A couple years ago, I started spreading uh, compost, and I had way too much, so I was just spreading it everywhere. And then I would mow a little further, so I have this little sanctuary that I can walk around in. And yeah, I'm just going to put down a lot more compost, and I'm going to put a lot more biochar in it. Now, I'm not really in the mode of selling biochar. I just, people don't want it that bad, I guess, but that's all right because I can put it to use. So I'm going to put a lot more in my compost. I'm going to add it far and wide on this place, a lot more than I have, and just see what happens. Okay. Are there some questions?
Yeah. Laura from Beaver Island wondered what you think about AI for sows.
I can only tell you what I've read. And usually what they do is they have a boar there, and that is their heat indicator, because the boar will he'll start pacing up and down the fence line, and he'll hone in on the sow that's ready to go. And when a sow is ready to go, they will stand for you. So whenever a female of any species is in, they will stand. They won't run away from you. So, keeping a calendar is a good idea. But because they will stand there for you, you can actually push down on their back and they will stand there for it. And then there's a semen injector, and it actually has a corkscrew twist on it. I think it's to the left, I think. And if you ever see a boar pig's penis, it's very similar to it. And it's go, no go. It either goes in or it doesn't. So you've got it in once it's buried right up and won't go any further. I've never used it. I've only read about it. And it's not, I can get a guy to come to the farm to do cows for me. But I don't even know if I could get a guy to come and do pigs. I don't think veterinarians do this. Now, if you lived in pig country, then you could probably do it if there's lots of pigs around. Like in the industry, that's how it's done exclusively in the factory farm industry. So I know it works. And I had a guy here years ago that was out of that industry, and he had come down from Canada, and he was actually thinking about bringing our pigs up to Canada and putting them in CAFOs. And he was a herdsman, and his job was to do that. So I know it does work. I would recommend on the island, I would recommend keeping a boar because you have plenty of feed. And I think that once we do a class up there, if we do a class this year, next year, whenever we do it, I think you'll have other people that say, I would like to do that too. I would like to keep some pigs. So if you had 2 sows, let's say, you could supply that entire island with enough feeder pigs, and then whatever you didn't use for people on the island, then you could feed out yourselves and then just process them right on farm. In the freezer they go, and then part that stuff out really easy. So I think that the island would be a great place to work this program and learn about all the different things that you can use this pig for. This week, you probably saw it. If Randy's here, Randy and Libby from Shady Grove up in the UP, they took lard and whipped it and made mayonnaise out of it. And it looked really good. I kidded him about it. I thought, well, isn't that too much fat? But Randy says, and he's in touch with what works in his body and what doesn't work. And he says, no, the lard works a lot better with his body than butter does. And butter from the store. There's stuff in there that I can see why it doesn't work with his body. But when he's got this lard, it's as pure as it comes because he's feeding him nothing but organic uh, scraps, and they got an organic store up there, so he gets all the produce that they can't keep on the shelf. It's all organic stuff, so it's pretty good stuff, and it's probably the best you can find. So his pigs are going to be the best you can find. Therefore, his lard would be the best you could find. So that whole program, we've only scratched the surface on that. If I wanted to throw everything else that I do out and just do Mangalitsa, I could have 25 facets off of it, and each one of them is a good source of income. And income a lot of times is not dollars, but it's other things, and that's what we're talking about in the farming, in the homesteading business, is kind of redefining. Is everything got to be dollars and cents? Well, no. I mean, if we made dinner here tonight all from the stuff and lunch that came off of this farm, so there was no money that went out. Here, let me show that. What is this?
That's the maple syrup one.
Here we go. Look at this. That's leaf lard. It's rendered leaf lard, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then get this, they put maple syrup in with it. And you'd think that's kind of like whipped cream and bologna. That doesn't sound really very good, but I will test it here. I already tested it. Now watch my expression. See, it's good. See that expression? And I'll show it to you again. It sounds really creepy, but it's good. It's really good. Surprisingly good. I mean, it's like a new thing, That's what I wanted to say. I mean, if we had these entities that are out there that use fear tactics to prevent us from doing what we want to do, as far as food and farming, which I think they're all full of baloney. I think you can do whatever you want, in my opinion. And we're going to go into that a little bit more. Maybe not today, but sometime when I feel good. I feel good now. I had some lard with. But if they didn't exist, and a guy like Randy can come across something like, hey, I just made mayonnaise out of pig fat, and it's good. It's better than Hellman's. And he could take it to the store up there, Scary Larry's, and say, hey, try this, man. Guy tries and says, hey, that's really good. The guy wouldn't be saying, yeah, but I can't put it on the shelf because the inspector will never buy it because you don't have a USDA stamp on here, and we have to do an MSDS, and you have to do all these testings, and FDA has to look at it and all. They're going to say no, right? That's why they just buy stuff off of the food truck that shows up, and that food truck delivers it to Scary Larry's, and he delivers it to Ruby Tuesdays. So any place you go, you're basically getting the same chow. Yeah, you're not getting anything really good. You're not getting anything really nutrient dense. You're getting the cheapest stuff that they can possibly produce and make the most money off of. So your food inspectors aren't doing a bricks test on it to see if, this is really nutrient dense. This would be good for human beings to eat. They probably wouldn't get sick if they ate this stuff. They're not saying that. They're saying, okay, here's a checklist. All these squares get filled, but none of them have to do with the nutrient density of it. So if those entities went away tomorrow, it's like Joel Salatin said about the USDA, if they just defunded them and they just went away, and if I had something that I produced, I could take it to the store, and if the store manager said, well, it looks good, smells good, tastes good, I'll test it, and if it's good, I'll put it on the shelf. I'll pay you what you want for it. Then small farms would blossom. And kind of like Joel said, who wouldn't want to stay home on an 80-acre farm, milk 10 cows, and make a white-collar salary? Who wouldn't want to do that? Instead of never getting ahead, punching a clock someplace. Why can't you do that? Because of these entities. you know, MDA, USDA, FDA, all these alphabet weenie agencies with people who don't do the thing, but want to regulate the thing, you know, and it's got to end because we're free people. I mean, it's gotten so bad that people are afraid to sell lemonade out in front of their house. Come on. Craziness, craziness. But these things have got to come to an end. These regulatory agencies have gone as far as they need to go. Now they need to be deregulated, and all the parasite class people that work for them need to get jobs, right? Real jobs. Maybe they need to come to work for the farmers that they've been putting out of business. How would that be? You know, and the farmers, if they're unbridled, might come up with some really cool stuff. Would come up with some really cool stuff. All the things that we have today were things that were created by, you know, the processes were put together by humans. All the raw materials were put here for us, and then humans figure out how to do it. But then this third party comes in, the parasite class, that's going to start to decide what's good and what's not good, what could be unsafe and what. And usually it's not based on safety. It's hardly ever based on safety. It's based on other things. Like they're picking winners and losers is what they're doing. They basically become for sale. Somebody wrote deep state in there. Right on. Right on, John Parkhurst. Okay. And I'll tell you what's coming as far as we're concerned. Like, I am a Fifth Amendment farm. I don't have that placard on my sign yet, but I will. And I'm claiming the Fifth Amendment. My life, my liberty, my property is protected under the U.S. Constitution, the supreme law of the land. It's protected. They can't under due process of law, right? So let's say that I sell something off of here. Let's say I sell a puppy off of here. Go to Google real quick and look up puppy selling laws. You won't get nothing, right? So that means nobody can regulate you. Go and look on milk selling laws and really research it. Get down through all the minutia in there, and you'll find out there really ain't any laws. There's a bunch of regulations, and they kind of worry you. And then the state will say, well, you can do it if you do a herd share contract. So they throw all this tanglefoot in your way that is, it can be kind of troublesome. But I can't sell a glass of milk to my neighbor because milk is illegal. And milk is illegal. Why? Because it's dangerous? Well, I don't think it is. And I don't think there's any proof that it is. I think there's some conjecture that it is that's been kind of hyped, but let's look at the scientific evidence and then we'll make the decision from that. But what you really have to do is just do it. And if you've broken a law, you'll find out. You'll find out. But if you ask permission, they're going to say, oh, well, yeah. I mean, try asking permission of a bureaucracy, right? For one thing, when you are talking to somebody in that bureaucracy, they're afraid that if they say, yes, you can do this, that it's going to come back later on and bite them, and they've got a career to worry about. So their first three answers are going to be no, or I'll have to refer it up the chain. So just do it. And then claim the Fifth Amendment. Claim the Fifth Amendment. I sell hay. I sell puppies. I sell milk. I sell pork chops. I sell chickens. My process protected under the Fifth Amendment. Period. They're going to try to convince you that the Fifth Amendment's not good enough. And I can tell you I've been meaning to talk about this at the food conference. I won't mention any names, but what I believe from my experiences of locking horns with these entities, and let's see, I locked horns with the Department of Attorney General, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Department of State Police. Right? 4 departments. Come to find out, them departments, they're corporations. Right? Now, I got to tell you, I do support the state police because I think that they were detailed to do something and they did it, but they were measured and sober and they were actually kind to me. I don't think that they should have been detailed in the first place. Let's say I call up the state police and I say, I'd like you to come here just to make sure everything stays safe. They say, we don't do that. So why should they do it for the Department of Ag when they want to come and, pester me about things? So I don't think they should have, but that was their upper command that made that decision. It wasn't the patrolmen. The patrolmen were the ones that you will run to if you have a big problem out there, because they are the sheepdogs in uniform, right? So I don't want to throw any stones at them. I actually admire them quite a bit. All right. Are you laughing at me?
No.
Okay.
No. Lee from Hidden Creek wants a tomahawk. That's what I was.
Okay. I'll talk about the tomahawks later. Yeah, I'm feeling a little better. But the other ones, Department of Attorney General, they were totally abusive to me. They were the ones on their letterhead called for a $700,000 fine against my family. All right. I think that's kind of abusive, 8th Amendment, but they didn't look at that. Department of Natural Resources, ditto. I mean, what a bunch of thugs. I mean, every court case, they tried to see how many people they could get in there in black suits, carrying guns and wearing body armor. Like, that's their thing. I don't know. I didn't see a lot of sanity amongst them. The Department of Agriculture, the way I characterize them is they are elitists. And we found that it stems from, they go to college, certain colleges, won't mention them. And this is the bottom third of the class, the ones that can't get hired any place. So they go to work for the Department of Agriculture, right? So they think they're smarter than the farmers that they're regulating, but they're really not, because they could never do what the farmers do. But they do have rule books and a certain amount of perceived authority. So they become elitists, minimally educated elitists of the farm community. They don't actually do the thing, but they use fear tactics to, climb the ladder of success within the Department of Agriculture. So anyway, if these outfits were just disbanded, if they were gone, if they were off the face of the planet, what would happen to the innovative farmer if the shackles were taken off of him? Who knows? Who knows? What would happen to the health of the populace if people said, well, I'm going to buy from this farm over there because he's got some serious nutrient-dense food. We don't get sick anymore. In any of these scenarios that we talk about, you have to ask the question, cui bono? Who benefits? So who benefits from having a Department of Agriculture that throttles farms, keeps them highly regulated, so everything they do, they have to pinch pennies, and they're not in the quality food business. They're in the, most amount of food for the littlest amount of money. Who benefits from that? All right, you have to ask that question. Does the public benefit from that? The answer is absolutely not. The Hippocratic Oath says, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food, and try to do no harm. That's what doctors, they take that oath when they become doctors. But now we're chemicals and cutting on people all the time instead of food. This is part of the education process. Anyway, Lee is talking about the tomahawks, and for me anyway, what I went through with the Department of Ag and the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Attorney General and the Department of State Police, for me, what worked was the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. That worked. Okay, There's a bunch of things that didn't work, right? Uh, Lawyers really didn't work. They kind of prolonged the process and they cost a ton of money. Now, I'm not saying there's not lawyers out there that could get the job done. I'm going to be meeting with one at CPAC here in a couple of months, and I heard he's good, but we'll see. The one I met with a couple weeks ago at the Rogue Food Conference, her shtick was the Constitution. That's kind of watery. It's not going to help you. You need us. That was her shtick. She said, Mark's talking about the Fifth Amendment here. That's all good and everything, but no buts. The law of this land is the U.S. Constitution. But my friends, you have to believe it. You have to believe it. And I believe it because I walked through it. I was the one that was threatened with, the loss of my liberty. They were going to put me in a cage, they said, which was a lie. I was the one that was threatened with a $700,000 fine, which was also a lie. They couldn't do either one of those things under the U.S. Constitution. My Constitution prevented them. Oh, would they have liked to do it? Oh, yeah, they would. Who do you think you are, Mark Baker, talking down to us? We're the Department of Agriculture. Who do you think you are? They'd have loved to lock me up. They'd still love to lock me up, but they can't. I can say whatever I want here. I can, so long as it's true. I mean, I can lie too. I mean, there's no law against lying, I guess. I guess I can't slander their personal, but if they don't like it, then do something about it. Maybe they need to change their ways a little bit, or maybe they need to make good on the damage that they did to my family and my farm. Maybe they don't want to do that though. So anyway, I believe in the U.S. Constitution, and when I gave my speech at the Rogue Food Conference, I said, this is what works and this is what doesn't. And I comb my hair over the last, 30 years of taking an oath. Well, that's when I say I comb my hair, that's how I go. That's how I roll, I guess. All right. It's kind of a military thing. Believing in the Constitution, that I've taken an oath to protect and defend with my life. So I believe in that document. I come to the civilian world. They don't believe in it. Why? Because it doesn't benefit them to believe in it. Lawyers don't like to believe in it either because we don't need them with it. With the Constitution, we don't need them near as much. And I don't want to throw stones at every one of them because I haven't met any one of them, but the three that I have worked with, it cost a lot of money and they didn't get a lot done. Not for our family. It was the Constitution that did that. And that was the handiwork of our forefathers and the people that put this country together. Without it, we would all be slaves. And I hope you know that by now. I hope you've got that figured out. And I can get very fired up on this because, as I've said before, and you need to think about this, think about what I'm saying. We need to have a healthy fear of being disarmed and only our government armed. The power needs to be balanced. And I don't even think it needs to be balanced, really. I think they need to be down a little bit because the wrong people gravitate towards government. So we really need to be armed up, right? But the other thing is we need to make sure that we have food, because if I take your food away from you for 48 hours, I can get you to do just about anything. People really freak out when they don't have food. So food security is very important. If you don't know about food security and how it's been used against people, I think you probably just need to do a Google search on that, and maybe Joseph Stalin might come up, maybe Mao Zedong might come up in there, Pol Pot, even Adolf, our buddy Adolf comes up. They starved people, right? And right now with the condensation that they've condensed food production to a central location, that's not good. That's not food security. We need to have thousands and thousands of small farms that are all producing high quality food. And guess what? Then you'll be able to start thinking again straight and your bodies will stay healthy. But the crappy food that they're putting out right now, that's why I have such a hard time with the USDA and Department of Ag, because they're responsible for that. Their mission statement implies that they're concerned about food quality and safety and all that stuff. But what we see is the opposite. It's kind of like 1984, where you have the Department of how they would have the Ministry of Love, but that's actually where they took people to torture them. So we have the Department of Agriculture, but I say it's the Department of Anti-Agriculture, because factory farming is really gotten far away from true agriculture, animal husbandry, taking care of the land and all that stuff. All they really do is create a situation where you need another department, the Department of Environmental Quality, which was probably started to go out there and make sure that the factory farms don't pollute. But now what they really do is they run defense for the farms, because they have a checklist, and so long as you stay within this checklist, you can't be polluting. But you go look in the streams and rivers around here, and it's obvious that they're polluted from factory farms. So I don't have a lot of time for any of it, but I do believe that the weapon that we are going to use to combat this and to achieve full food freedom, which would mean I have the right to eat anything I want, I have the right to produce anything I want and sell it to anything I want, and there is not an entity that can stop that. Just like we don't have the Department of Puppy Control, right? I can sell my puppies to anybody I want, right? I shouldn't give them ideas. But when we achieve full food freedom, which is in the works, it's going to be done with the Constitution. I don't think we need to make any new laws or anything like that. Just let's stay with the Fifth Amendment, and that will be good enough. But I want to symbolize this. I want to. I'm going to buy some really nice tomahawks, and my friend Lee there that's chiming in is I'm going to see if he can engrave them with the Bill of Rights on maybe the handle. And then, I think it'd be a nice thing to have, so you could look at your tomahawk as your weapon against these tyrannical communist organizations, that we fund with our tax dollars that try to tell us what to do. It really needs to get turned around. And I think we're seeing the rumblings of this a lot of places. If we just start to talk about them, who they are, what their budgets are, and then let's have a realistic conversation about what do they do? Department of Agriculture, what do you guys actually do for the $110 million budget that you had in 2019? How did that benefit me? I know you spent a lot of time coming up my driveway and telling me that I can't produce food for people, but what do you really do? Oh, it's a food safety issue. Like I've been poisoning people, right? Okay. I'll get off of that and we'll get to the questions. But please, this seems to be the direction that this is going, because the Rogue Food Conference was put together by some really smart people that have their hand on the pulse of the nation, I would say. Joel Salatin's a very, very, very wise individual. He's been on this a long time. We're standing on his shoulders as far as the process goes, but he's got his hand on the pulse of this, and he's decided this is the time to put a stake in the sand and go on the offensive, go back at them. We've just been reacting to their communist ways here for too long, and it is time to go on the offensive, go back at them. And I think when a few of them wind up in big fat lawsuits, when they're in it personally, right, and they find out that, you mean the department isn't going to stand behind me and provide me with lawyers? No, they're not. You're going to have to pay for that out of your own pocket. And as soon as that happens, the word of that will spread throughout their 510 members here in the state of Michigan, and then it'll go to other states because they all swap around. I mean, they don't, it's not like they get in these great departments and then go to work for a big company and then go back. It's not really how it works. Once that gets around, they'll be thinking, okay, I have the handbook with the Department of Ag here that I signed on, and they want me to do what I'm told. But these citizens have constitutional rights here. So it's going to be a balancing act, but I'm going to balance it in such a way that I stay safe because I know that these farmers will take me into a court of law and wring me out. And that's the offensive right there, basically. That's the offensive. And we've been told in the past that that can't happen, but that's not true. And we all know that now. So anyway, let's talk farm. No more of this warlike thing, but those tomahawks, they're going to be available soon because that's a really nice thing. And I am going to be speaking from the speaking thing that I did at the Rogue Food Conference. I got 2 other offers after that. And one of them is CPAC, which is a big deal. So CPAC is a conservative organization, and really conservatism has to do with freedom. Basically, I make the decision for myself. I don't need some elitist, weird organization telling me what is the process that I'm going to engage in. I will be the one that decides where the guidelines are on my process. That's conservatism. And for the conservative movement to acknowledge food is huge. And that's why I think, this is going the right direction, and we're just along for the ride. But we're going to pile on, just like they've been doing to us. So there you go. I'm ready for some farm questions. Feeling better now. Feeling much better.
In maybe 30 seconds or less, because this ties into what you just said, and then what are your feelings on the right to buy raw milk? What's their beef with that? Mike wanted to know. Not Mike, right. Then another Mike.
Another Mike. The beef with that is the milk industry is it's a huge generator of capital, huge generator of money. And what has happened, and you know what, I know a lot about this, more about it than I probably should, but I live in a dairy community, and we have watched farms grow really big, and then all of a sudden they're vacant. There's people who are losing everything, and I mean, it's their identity. And so then there's real health problems, there's real psychological problems, there's even suicides. It's a bad deal. And so I do know a lot about it. And some of the biggest farms are right at this time trying to figure out an alternative. And I know this for a fact because I've had people right at my table discussing this, right? And I feel their plight, but they were lured into a bad situation, and they were lured into this situation by companies, corporations, and now they've got huge farms, and the price of milk is way down. And who keeps it down? Is it that Americans just aren't buying milk anymore? I don't know. That's not true. Milk is $1 a gallon at some stores. I mean, real grade A good milk. And so it's been done to them artificially. And so the milk lobby doesn't really want an 80-acre farm like mine to have 10 cows and supply milk to 300 people. They don't want that because they can't get their grubby hands on it. So they put together these regulations, and they're all nebulous, and they want you selling your milk to a co-op, and there's like 1, 2, 3 co-ops uh, in every state. I don't know how many there are in this state, but if you don't sell to those co-ops and you're producing, 2,500 gallons of milk a day, who do you sell to? So it's not really a free market anymore. And the farmers are not able to say, this is what I want for my product. They ship the milk, and then the co-op that they ship it to says, this is what we'll give you for your product, but it's already shipped. And so these guys are losing money every day, and they have for 5 years. So that's really what it's all about. The milk industry is wanting to make the number of farms a lot smaller. They're consolidating it, centralizing it, and it's not good, because where before you had a guy ran an 80-acre farm with 10 cows, and he was making a good living, is able to put his kids through school, wear nice clothes, drive nice vehicles. Now that same guy makes $10 an hour working for a dairy that employs, 500 people, and nobody does better than $10 an hour. No benefits, no nothing. So they're barely scraping by. So it's a bad situation. If that went away and we went back to 80-acre farms, all with 10 cows, people would start making money again, and you could get raw milk again. Because the milk that you're getting, they take everything out of it that you need. I mean, believe it or not, raw milk is good for you. And more of that's coming out all the time. You can always find the off commentary from somebody, usually from the Department of Agriculture or some college, that said, oh, raw milk, that's almost as deadly as crack cocaine. But that's baloney. That is absolute all my kids have grown up on raw milk, and every one of them's eyes sparkle. Healthy as horses, Raw milk's good stuff. Not only that, it tastes good. So that's why they have a hard time with it. But it's not on the controlled roster. And a milk share, a cow share, they wouldn't promote that if they had the opportunity to just make it illegal. Okay, if raw milk is illegal, right? Because I had a lady ask me this a couple days ago. Well, I don't want to fool. Raw milk's illegal. Well, wait, crack cocaine is illegal. If you get caught with that, boom, they put the cuffs on you. Illegal, right? There's no negotiation. With raw milk, you're going to get a couple of phone calls. You're going to get a letter in the mail, something like that. You're never going to get them coming up and slapping the cuffs on you and putting you in jail. Raw milk, 5 years in jail. It doesn't, because it isn't, or else they would. It's always coercion and threats and all that stuff. I've been doing milk for a long time. I don't do shares. I mean, we did for a long time, but it's useless. And nobody checks it. And if they did, it's none of their friggin' business. If I want to sell milk to somebody, that's between me and them. Unless you make raw milk illegal, which would mean somebody has to have an idea, put it in a bill, send it to the House for an up or down, send it to the Senate for an up or down. And if it makes it, goes to the governor's desk and he signs it, and all of a sudden raw milk is illegal. That would mean if you're in possession of raw milk, you're in trouble. But that's not the case. And it's never going to be the case. So. Another question?
Brittany wanted to know, what is something you grow that others look at you like you're crazy? Fruit, veggies, animals, etc.
Well, most of the people in my extended family here think I'm crazy if I didn't grow anything. So I don't know. I think one of my favorite things to grow is daikon radishes, or they call them fodder radishes. And it's a radish that's white, and they can get up to about 24 inches, and usually about a third of them sticks out of the ground, and they have this great big green plume on the top of them. And you know how they say you can hear the corn growing? These things grow so fast at the correct time of year in correct soils and things like that, that you literally go out there and they are, 5 inches bigger in the morning than they were the night before. And when they start really growing, they're churning the ground up and they're putting off this really nice smell. And it's a miracle happening before your eyes. And then you go out there, pull one of them up. And let's say they're that big around. I take a knife, cut that baby, pull some of that meat from the inside of it that's just never been touched by human hands. It's just dripping with pure goodness. And you take a chunk of that out, and it's better than eating an apple. It really is. You just stand there and eat the stuff and say, well, when am I going to get sick of eating this? It's so good. And then, you eat a section of it that big, throw the rest of the pigs and they eat it. It's a pretty cool thing. And it all from some tiny little seed that you can't even weigh, and that seed is very inexpensive and it creates so much forage for your animals. And then when you turn the animals into it, then it's even more interesting because they're weaving through it and they're just, I always say it's like Homer Simpson in the land of chocolate. They're just it's hog heaven. They sleep in their own food, get up and eat a little, and then flop back over again. Gives them shade, and it tastes good. And the tops, they look like a plume of like tobacco when you see tobacco growing down south. But they're really good. You can eat that too. We've even brought a lot of that in the house and made salads out of it. It's really good stuff. If it's grown in good rich soil, you're going to get very dense, very nutrient dense stuff. Like you eat it, and I swear you can actually feel it. It's sort of like you drink a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, and all of a sudden, I think I'll go to work. It's sort of like that but it's a different feeling. It's just a feeling of capability, I guess, or potential. I've got the potential to do something here. I don't know if that makes any sense. Next. Feeling much better. Thank you.
Brittany also wanted to know, do you have bees? Have you done them before? What's your take on raising bees?
We have bees on the farm, but they're not mine. They're Josh Cross's. He's a neighbor, and he's a bee expert. He does his bees, and then he does consulting work at a big bee outfit down in Florida. They give him a company car and everything. So he's the bee guy. And he is doing classes at his place. He lives a few miles away. So we do have bees. And then the deal we make with him is we want some of the honey. So he gives us I think he gives us a lot of honey, like 5 gallons. So, and it's all from our biosphere. And 5 gallons of honey, I think, lasts us till the next year. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So I don't use sugar. I use honey, like in my coffee and stuff. Honey's good stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should do it. And it's profitable. It's definitely profitable. I think that so long as you bring that up, and like how next thing would be, well, how do you make profit with it? I think what you're going to want to do, I think what they've done is they've created a choke point for good products, and they've figured out that the only place they can really do the choke point is before it goes into retail stores and restaurants. Also farmers markets, they got a choke point there. So you'll see that black sedan there with the person cruising around trying to figure out how do we keep these local products out of here. They'll tell you different, but that's not the truth. They're trying to keep them out. So what's going to happen is if you want good food, restaurant's not going to be where you're going to find it. It's just not going to. And we used to sell to organic stores around here, but now with the way that they've changed the regulations and everything, like you see an organic section at the big box stores now. So because they say it's organic, does that mean it's, and then when you look into it, you find out, well, yeah, it's still confinement operations, but they're organic because they say they are. And, lawyers write all this stuff. So what's going to happen is if you're going to want to get your body healthy, you're going to have to make the sacrifice to venture on to the farm to buy food. And the way that's going to be done is going to be the farm is going to be under the protection of the Fifth and Fourth Amendment. So my customers can come on and then they can go into an area where we have freezers and stuff like that, and they can take what they want and go off. And the whole thing is protected by the Fifth Amendment. And they're members of it. It's not public. So the authority of the Department of Agriculture, let's say, ends where private property begins. So it's a private transaction. You could be buying, grass-fed beef from me. It's the same as buying a puppy from me. They have no authority. So we'll see these small outlets on farms. And then if you have a guy that's doing something that you don't do, and he wants to cooperate with you, you have a transaction with him, and he can put his stuff in your store. That will be the way that it's going to be done. Yeah, I wonder if Haven's on here now. He's the one
he was a while ago.
Yeah. I got a lot that I want to talk with those guys about. I mean, we have an awesome opportunity here as a group. We've got a chunk of land that's being set aside to set up a sustainable operation. And in our spare time, I think we'll spend some time putting together a plan and play it out with the knowledge that we have on this, how it really works. When I put this place together, the guys around me, they just milk cows and they don't know really much anything else about what I wanted to do. And so I really couldn't get any information from them. So I went to Department of Ag and said, what do I need to do? And they kind of led me in a direction, but it was a bad direction because the way that we're a grass-based operation, the food is going to be better, but we're not going to be able to compete with the price point of food that comes out of concentrated animal feeding operations. We just can't because we don't have the scale, anything like that. But our customer base is different too. The people that just want cheap food, there it is. There's 59 cents a pound chicken. You can have it all day long. But if you want nutrient dense stuff that's actually going to nurture your body and help you to do better, this body of ours is regenerative, but we have to provide it with the building blocks that it can regenerate itself with. Like, nowadays people are just, well, I'll swap that knee out instead of eating what you should be eating to regenerate the cartilage and the bone and stuff like that. So that's where our food comes in. And, if we're eating nutrient deficient food, not only are we not going to have the building blocks to regenerate the cartilage and the bone and the brain material and the fat and all that stuff, we don't have that. Our body's going to say, you haven't fulfilled, you haven't given me what I need. You haven't given me what I need. So you just, okay, I'll eat some more, cook up another box of macaroni and cheese. And then you'll eat that. And then your body gets it and says, that's not what I wanted, but now I got to do something with it. So I'll store it. I'll store it down here. I'll store it over here. I'll store it over here. And then you wind up with a weight problem, right? Because you've stored a lot of garbage is what you've done. So the fix really is to allow that stuff to go, cleanse out, and then start putting in the stuff that your body needs. And it's surprising when you eat nutrient dense food, you say, I'm full. I really don't need any more of that. That's kind of how that works. Was that the question? I don't remember now.
You've been ranging far afield today. Cody is planning on doing his first hogs this weekend, 22 mag to the head. Only question is the bleeding process. Does the jugular run right along the esophagus?
All right. That's a really good question. And I'm glad to hear you're going to use the 22 mag. Spend a little time thinking about where you're going to put that bullet and how you're going to do it. All right. What I do is throw something down on the ground they really like some bread, and their head goes down. And then you're going to want to pay attention to the angle of the skull plate. All right. So let's say my hand is the skull and the trajectory of the bullet. You know, do you want to come from this direction? Do you want to come from this direction? You want to come from this direction? Well, you want to come from this. You want to have a perpendicular hit. All right. Because you want all the energy from that, the powder in that case to be transferred directly in. You don't want a glancing shot. You don't want it to bounce off, you know, and it can, like even a windshield, like a 5.56 will actually bounce off a windshield. One on a pig's head, probably, but the 22 mag is good. Then he's going to go down. If you get a good hit, he'll go down. You've got to get in there, and we always pick him up with a loader. So we'll put a lanyard around the back leg, pick him up. He's still going to be struggling, but he's out of it. His heart's still beating at that point. And then you can kind of demonstrate on yourself, like right here, these bones come together, your clavicle, and then there's a little V right there. You want to find that on him, but on him, it actually comes to kind of a point. So you'll feel that point there. And then just behind it, say here, take a knife that's got a blade on it, 6 or 8 inches, and then point that right at his tail. You know, point the knife right at his tail and then push it in, right? And it should go in easy once you go through the skin right here. And you're in a channel there. And that channel is where his esophagus is and jugular veins is and all that stuff. But don't worry about the jugular vein. You're going to just follow that channel down. And then his heart is right here at the top of that channel, right? And your knife will go right into the cluster of valves on the top of his heart. And so long as you get in there, even a tiny little cut, he'll empty out really quick. And that's what kills him. And, you know, if you want to do blood collection, if you can't pick him up, then you just roll him up on his back when he's not kicking too much. Got to be careful because you've got a knife and they kick hard enough to throw that knife up in your face or throw it into your neck. So the guy doing the, it's called sticking, should be not the guy that's holding him up. So it would probably be better, if you're not real good at it, to have 2 guys doing it. I can do it myself, but I've done it enough times where I kind of know what's going to happen. So I can roll him up with his head. Actually, I'm straddling his head. You're not going to get bit. And that way, I'm clear of the front legs. I'm definitely clear of the back legs. The back legs are the ones that will get you. And they can kick pretty hard. Okay? I hope that works out for you.
Oh, here's a related one, so I'm going to throw it in here. And because we had that pig recently, we butchered last weekend, found what looked to be deep bruising in the hams. Research said it was due to not bleeding out fast enough. Have you ever seen this?
We did see that. It was on a pig that I did up at Shady Grove, and the type of pig was a Berkshire cross. So it was not a Mangalitsa, and I wasn't impressed with it at all. You know, almost didn't like touching it very much. But it was a smaller pig, like 200 and something pounds. And I got a good stick on that thing. And I think the pictures were on Facebook. Randy put them up. They'd be at Shady Grove Facebook page, UP, so you can see the pictures there. And because they're not hairy, so I got a good stick on him, and he bled out fast. But then when we got the carcass inside and we started looking at it, there was these spots, and they were, in the rear hams and stuff, and we really hadn't seen it before. We kind of chalked it up to Randy shot him, and we opened up the gate, and he rolled over the electric fence. And I didn't see him jerking around on the electric fence, but we chalked it up to that because we didn't know what else to chalk it up to. But when we pushed on those spots, the blood came right out. So it wasn't. And they were very healthy pigs. Another thing I wanted to tell you, the other guy that was asking about doing his pig this weekend, do not do one of these. Don't do one of these. And the reason you don't do that is because all the contents of the stomach will come out. So you don't want to do that. And you're also cutting the jowls. So don't do that. I've seen guys do that, and it's not how you do it. You stick them right here. That's how you do it. And the 22 mag is a good choice. If it's a really big pig, use a 22 mag with kind of a solid point on it. If it's a smaller one, use a big fat hollow point, because you want that bullet to only go in like 2 inches and stop. You don't want to go down into the jowls or anything else. And sometimes if you hit them right with a 22 long rifle, the bullet will travel right down. If you use a 30 cal, it's going to go right through them. That's all there is to it. Or a 5.56 will go right through them.
Okay, Cody followed up, and I'm not sure if he heard your whole thing. Okay. But just simply, do the jugular veins run along the esophagus? Well,
yeah, they do, but that's not what you're looking for. Getting the jugular veins is a cut like this. That's how you kill enemy soldiers, but you're not going to eat enemy soldiers. When you're doing a pig, you stick them, and it's right down like that. Like I said, you don't want to spill the contents of the stomach out onto all this meat that you've opened up. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. And Charles said that theirs was a crossbreed, about 250 pounds, good shot, and went up fast. So the lack of bleeding didn't make a whole lot of sense there either.
Huh, yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to research it. Somebody research and let us know.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm going to give you a question from earlier this week, because the gentleman just jumped on. Dimitri, I think that's who it is. Cattle from cold Siberia.
Oh. All right. This is great. Siberia.
Raising Mangalitsas. What are some of the ways to train these pigs to eat hay?
You know what? Some people have a lot of trouble doing that. My pigs, they just go right after it. I just put it in there for them. But I think with my pigs, when I come over with the tractor, it's like time to eat. So there can still be feed on the ground. And if I come over there, I usually spear a round bale, and then I hang it over the fence. And then I get in there, I cut the strings off, and then I pull a lot of the hay off. I don't give them the whole bale. And they're going wild on it. They just eat it. I think a lot of the times people have problems. I see somebody put molasses there. I think that's the problem. I think if you give them a diet, especially of hog chow is, it's got a lot of characteristics to it that I just don't like. And I don't like the way the pigs act when they get hog chow. They get kind of aggressive, and they stink too. Hog chow has what's called raw protein in it, and it's basically you're feeding other pigs to them, and it's generational over and over and over. So we just don't use it. I think you're better off Not using hog chow because you bring things on your farm that you're only going to get them fixed by bringing drugs on your farm then and having a lot of sickness. I think you'll bring every sickness there is on your farm if you bring hog chow on. That's my opinion. We have had incidents where we've made pigs available to people that really weren't ready for them, and then they brought them back and deposited them in with my pigs while I was gone. And I came home and I was like, "What is that smell?" And then I find out, 3 weeks later, along with an outbreak of some weird thing that we've never seen, and a bunch of dead pigs later. That, oh yeah, I brought those pigs back. And I fed them hog chow too, didn't you? Even though I told you not to. Well, yeah, because the guy at the grain company told me I had to, right? So it's like that. Well, the guy at the grain company, he's an agronomist and he's been to college. So, but I would say no, don't feed them hog chow at all. And if you're just feeding them grain, when they get something like green hay, especially in the wintertime, they'll go crazy for it. I think that the problem is like if they have options, it's sort of like children. If you put in front of them, a plate of cookies and then a salad and a hamburger, they're going to say, "Well, just have this." How do you get your kids to eat greens? Put the greens in front of them,
And that's their only
and
choice.
that's it. So if they're hungry, they're going to eat the greens. And with my kids, I don't think we ever did it. But we said that, well, if you don't eat this, then mom will cover this and put it in the fridge, and then you'll have that for breakfast in the morning. I don't know as we ever did it, but we said we would. So sort of like that with your pigs, if they don't, if let's say you hold all their other feed and then you just give them hay, oh, they'll eat it. It'll take a while, but they'll eat it. Maybe white pigs, but back then I was feeding hog chow too, so I don't know.
Well, white pigs, remember when we saw those teeth? Same
Yeah,
age, and the teeth on the white pigs looked like baby teeth,
right.
where the red wattle and the Mangalitsa had very well developed
Yeah, that's
chompers
right.
capable of,
Pulverizing it,
yeah,
grinding that hay up.
yeah.
No, they should be able to eat hay, and um, it rounds out their diet too. It's Hay is really good stuff.
He said he quit feeding them grain and they start eating the hay. So
Yeah,
and now that the creek froze, they've started to eat
snow.
and
Yeah.
so they're snow and hay and happy as clams.
Yep, yep. And are they Mangalitsas? Is that what we're talking here?
Yes.
In Siberia.
Yep.
That's cool. Here in the States, we talk about Siberia all the time. We hear about it all the time. If you don't know, we do a hog harvest class, right? So we teach people how to harvest these hogs, and we do it the European way. So we'd be, a little bit more welcome in your neck of the woods. But I would love to come to Siberia to do a class and maybe drink some vodka with you. Maybe. Probably not, but I'd love to come to Siberia and do a class. Of course, you got to get enough people and they all got to pay and it's got to make it worth our while to go, but that would be really cool. Bring the Americans over.
All right.
We can trade hats.
The next two questions are kind of related. We're on a theme here. D-Mac had asked a question earlier this week. How are the animals doing in the cold? And what are you planning to grow in your forage fields?
Well, we haven't had a very cold winter. So today it was like the low was 26 degrees. So that's not cold for here. So my animals are just fine. They're loving life. I went out today. It was sunny. They're laying out like it's Miami Beach. And when it is cold, they sleep a lot. So you just give them a lot of bedding and make sure they have a lot of food and they're fine. I don't think it distresses them the way it does us. And even now, at this stage of the game, it doesn't distress me the way it used to when like 15 years ago when I first got here and we'd go through a really cold spell. Now it just doesn't bother me that much anymore. Um, so you get used to it. And what am I planning to grow? Well, my usual stuff. I mean, I've already got rye planted in one of the fields out there, and when the snow came, it was up about 6 inches. So that will be the first field that I turn them into. I'll wait till it's up a good, foot and a half, and I'll try to show that to you. And then the field that they're on now, I will put that into um, field peas. Field peas grow good in the spring, when it's cool. And then the next one over, I will probably put that in daikons, but I'll wait a little bit to get them going. Because if they get a cold start, then they never really develop. So I don't know as I'm going to try anything new this year. I think I've settled on what works, and I have that seed. So that's probably what I am going to do this year that's different, that I'm really excited about, is something that I saw up at Shady Grove, and I think they saw it on Pinterest if I remember. But they took hog panels, and hog panels are nothing more than 16-foot panels of welded rod. I guess it's probably 3/16 rods that are welded together, and it makes a lattice. And usually you put it in with stakes. Well, they can be bent, and if you bend them, the peak will be almost 8 feet. And then you put two of them, and it'll, they're 36 in sections. So you put two of them, it gives you 6 feet, or you can leave a gap between, will give you maybe 7 feet. And you plant on either side. And they planted cucumbers, they planted squash, they planted peas, they planted beans. They put up a bunch of these things. They free up a ton of space in your garden, and it was neat because you could walk down this like archway, and the beans are hanging down right for you to pick. So the beans are on the inside, and then there's this canopy of foliage on the top. I mean, it was incredible. I thought, why haven't I done that before? But I'm going to go one better. On a couple of them, I'm going to build 8-foot by 4-foot frames. So I'll take 2x4s and put them together. And then I'm going to staple these things onto them so that I can set them out there. But then I can move them off with the tractor, because I like to get everything off of my garden. I don't do this anymore, but I recommend doing this. Fence your garden in, and then turn pigs in there and let them take everything off in the spring. And they'll turn everything and manure it for you and all that stuff. And I don't do that anymore just because, but I do have a nice rototiller now, which I know a lot of people don't like rototillers, but I like mine. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build a bunch of them, and then I'm gonna go even a little better than that. I'm gonna put a floor in it, and I'm gonna put my rabbits in there. So when I'm out in the garden and I'm weeding, all the weeds go into the rabbits. So I'm not just weeding, I'm feeding. So I'm taking that process and I'm cutting that process in half. I'm going to go out and weed today. No, I'm going to go out and feed today. And the byproduct of it is, I just weeded or wed, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So when I get it built, I'll show it to you. Maybe I'll put it on Pinterest.
Maybe so. It's my next venture is Pinterest.
Pinterest.
So related, Jesse wanted to know, what do you think is a good ratio of green growing forage to grain?
A good ratio. That's a deep question. from a homesteader's point of view, I would say you want your percentage of grain to be as little as possible, because even where I am, I can have my animals out on forage. And the way I've got mine broken up, I've got 3 fields, 100 by 100. And I can grow so much forage in there that I don't have to give them anything. And they can just eat what's growing. And they're totally satisfied, and they do grow well on it. Mangalitsas grow on it well. I'll put that out there, because I've heard people say that, well, pigs just won't, not going to grow on green stuff. Well, some pigs won't, but the Mangalitsa being a heritage breed, they do. They'll make very high quality meat and fat out of forage, which, what could be better? I'm not saying that they don't get anything else, because we do a lot of chicken butchering in the summer months, during those 6 months when they're on forage. So I have to dispose of all of my heads, feet, and guts and all that stuff from the chickens. So what better place to dispose of that than with the pigs? And they make good use of it. It's legitimate. I mean, it's chicken, it's fresh. It's not like we let it sit around and get maggoty or anything. Not that it would make any difference to them, but it gets fed to them the same day that it's taken out of the chickens, if we don't use it. But like a chicken head, there's a lot there, head and a neck. Most people don't want them. And we take what we want. Sometimes we bag a bunch of that stuff up and put it in our freezer for our own dogs, if they're nice, healthy chickens, or they're our chickens. So they are getting protein as well. But from a homesteader's point of view, I mean, you may be following some of these sites about heritage breed pigs and stuff, and people will say, oh no, it's got to be 19%, 19.2%. None of this is that scientific. None of this is that unforgiving. All right. It's all very forgiving. If an animal is in the wild, they could go a long time in between scores of food, so a pig's in the woods, and in places where they have pigs, not in the United States, but they're native, like in the Pacific Rim, pigs will be in the woods, and the only thing that they can get is during the months of August and 1 week in September, when the bananas are falling out of the trees. So they're eating nothing but bananas. And then during another month is when, the birds are nesting. And so they come across birds and they'll eat the little birds and stuff. So their diet it varies. It's all over the place. Even you look at, coyotes, their diet varies tremendously with the seasons. Deer, same thing. So to think that you've got to keep it at 19%, and the only way you can do that is with hog chow, and the guy at the feed company says you've got to do this or they won't grow. Now, from a homesteader's point of view, you're looking for the highest quality that you can get, but you don't want to be using your precious dollars to do that. You want to be growing as much of it as you can. And, we're approaching homesteading, small farming from the point of view of abundance. We just have to see it. Like, I have a lot of lawn here, and I get criticized for my lawn, but I just like it. I think it looks neat, and it's just nice. It looks good, and it keeps the bugs down. And I grew up with lawns, but I get criticized for it. But anyway, so I have a lawnmower, and I have an attachment on it that will catch the grass clippings. And when I was a kid, I was like, wow, this is such a pain in the butt having to do this. But now my point of view is, look at this stuff. You take these grass clippings and you put those in with your pigs, they go crazy for them. It's nice, green, luscious. I mean, I want to even eat it. It smells so good. So it's very, very abundant. It's so abundant that We give all the pigs will eat. We give all the chickens all they will eat. Don't give it to the cows because they're out grazing at the time. And then the rest of it we use in between the rows in the garden to suppress weeds and build the organic material of the soil. It's abundant. It's totally, totally abundant. So that's kind of how I justify my lawns is they're like when I'm out mowing the lawn, I don't use that word. I use the word harvest. I'm not harvesting the lawn. So, all point of view. Very abundant though. And there's other stuff too. Like if you get into growing, let's see what grows really good. Zucchini, for instance. Well, don't plant too many of them because we'll have too many zucchinis. No, put in 4 rows of zucchinis because you can feed it to everything on your farm. You can, and the tops too. You can feed it to your pigs. They'll love it. Grow a field of zucchini. You know how quickly that will grow and how much forage you'll have there. Pigs love it. So think about it differently, you know. Like if you're just only gonna have 2 zucchini plants and then, wow, that's way too much for my house because nobody really likes it anyway. And you're only taking the ends off and feeding those to the pigs and it's like ho hum. But what if you grew a field of zucchinis and, you know, turn your pigs in there or figured out a way to take those zucchinis and run them through a chipper and add something to it and pile it up so that you could feed it all winter long. And I don't know if that would really work. I'm just talking about it. But, you know, if a zucchini is this big, a pig will eat it. If it's this big, a pig will eat it. And there's a lot there from a zucchini seed. I mean, a handful of zucchini seeds would grow you, I would say it would be in the ton range of zucchini of forage that you would get from that. So, I mean, it's basically coming out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, you don't supply the rain, you don't supply the sunlight. It's there because this is an abundant planet, right? It's abundant. We just have to know how to look at it, know how to steward it, and not listen to the people say that it's not abundant. And you can only do this, this, and this. Okay.
So one more related question, and then we'll get to some of the others.
Okay.
How much hay per pig in the winter? Brittany wanted to know.
That's really easy. You just put it down, and when they're done eating it, and when it's not there anymore, you put some more down. I don't know, Brittany. It's,
free choice.
Yeah, it's free choice. Just, you know, it's nice to have snow because they won't muck it all up. Pigs have a tendency to sleep in whatever you put out there for them. Like I unwrapped a ton of bread today and I just dumped it in there because I didn't want to deal with it tomorrow and the next day. They ate what they wanted and then they laid down in it and slept. So just give them what, you know, what you think. You'll probably be getting it by the squares. So give them a couple of flakes. And the next day, if they're all gone, if it's all gone, give them some more. Or if you miss a couple of days, you know, give them something else.
All right. I'm going to plug you in just a sec, so I might jump.
All right.
And Lone Star
Homesteader
wanted to know, do you milk your cows by hand? If not, what are you using?
Good question. I have milked the cows by hand, and every year we do it a little bit. And the reason why we would do it a little bit is when a cow first comes in, we'll kind of strip her out, so you are kind of milking. But I started out with what they call a surge milker, and you can find them, pictures of them online. And a surge milker setup like the one I got, it was actually given to me. My wife's grandfather had procured it and turned it over to his boys when they were milking. And they don't remember, but when I got it, it still had brand new parts in it, and the thing's from the 20s, right? And then you got to have a little vacuum pump, which is sort of a compressor. And the one that I have is tiny. It's a cute little thing. It's old. I had to put a new motor on it, and it's 110 volts. You plug it in. And then there's a line that goes from it to the surge milker. And the surge milker is a pail that hangs under the cow. So there's actually a strap that you put around her, and you can adjust it on the strap, and then the tit cups come off of that. And I've shown it in my videos before, but I think you could probably find a picture of it online, while we're talking here. And I still have that. It's in great condition, but I found a better one that is, I don't know exactly what they call it. I think they call it a pail milker. And it's probably newer technology. It's probably 40s technology. So you have a stainless steel pail that it's got a handle on it, and then it's got a top pulsator, simulates the the sucking motion that a calf would do on a cow. So then there's this thing called a claw that has the tit cups on it that you are able to take over there with a hose and plug onto the cow. And it's a lot easier than the surge milker, especially for kids, because with the surge milker, you got to have about 3 hands to do it. I can do it pretty easy, but the little kids have a hard time with it. So this one's a lot easier. And, we have to clean all the components of that every day. But if you're milking even one cow, it definitely makes sense, because you'll milk out a cow in 10 minutes, literally 10 minutes or sooner, and you'll get 4 gallons of milk out of her. And it's an efficient way to do it, and it keeps her coming. It keeps the milk coming. Whereas if you do it by hand, it'll wear you out, and you still don't get it all. It just keeps coming, and you wind up saying, "Oh, the heck with this." But with the mechanized milkers, it really cleans them out. I only milk once a day because it's Homestead operation, and I think the cow probably has a finite quantity of milk, and whether we get it once a day or twice a day, for us, once a day is good enough, and then we can carry on with the rest of our operations during the day. If you're doing nothing but milking, then twice a day is what you would do. So there you go. Hope that helps you. If you're going to go in the direction of homesteading, having 5 cows and selling milk for $10 a gallon, you can do really well with it. Raw milk, people really like it.
Mm-hmm. Joe wanted to know, Joe Brown, what's your best marketing tool on the homestead?
It's other customers for sure, Joe. If you paid $500 to get a billboard and put it out on the highway, I don't think, thousands of people are going to see it, but a very small number of those people are interested in what you're about. And Joe Brown is in Maine, and he is embarking on an adventure here. He's putting together a butcher shop, and he's going to do custom chicken processing to start. And eventually, I think, if we talked before, I think the plan will be the custom chicken butchering brings people to you, and then you're able to expose them to other things that you do. They just see it while they're there. And then, oh, you have worms. I get worms to go fishing with, so I might as well get them off you. Or you have rabbits. You have this. You have that. Oh, I can get my chicks from you. That's another thing you can do, Joe. You can actually put up signage that people can get their chicks from you. So you brood the chicks, and then you bump the price of them. Let's say you get them from the hatchery for $1, and then you bump the price to $2, people that are just going to do 10 or 15 meat birds, it's convenience. Instead of them making an order from the hatchery, they will just get them from you. And, every little bit helps. It's a source of income for sure. So your customers' word of mouth is going to be your best friend. So with that, when you have somebody show up and you're tired and you don't really want to talk to anybody, you never know who you're talking to. So just be kind to everybody and be the guy that when they are talking about you with their friends, they say, yeah, that guy's really cool. He helps me out. He tells me, how to do stuff. And, that stuff pays off. And that's who you want to be as the ambassador for small farms. A lot of my people that live around here that are doing a monoculture and they're selling to like a milk distributor, and their life sucks right now because they're losing money every day. They're not very nice people. They're not, but their customer is not me. So they've become very unnice people because they've been put between a rock and a hard place. People that have kind of lied to them. You want to be diversified too. You want to have a couple of things going. So if something doesn't work out, you got something else to lean back on. And I can personally speak to that because when we locked it up with the state, they basically sanctioned our farm because they put as much pressure on us as they possibly could. And it wasn't enough because I wasn't going to stop. But they only had to put a little bit of pressure on my customers, my restaurants and my retail stores. And they were like, because they were scared. So if I had all my eggs in one basket, I would have been in tough shape. But I had a lot of different things going. So I could just put a little bit more emphasis over here on this and less on my pigs. I wound up having to actually slaughter a lot of my pigs and just give them away because, which was a shame. Another question?
What is your fish farming plan for 2020?
Who's asking this?
Joshua, I forget his last, Pontecara maybe? I'm sorry if I said
we
that
must
wrong,
have talked
Joshua.
about this before, but that is actually a very good question because if you buy a piece of property that is wet and you feel as though you have a terrible problem, I have a neighbor with this, and I don't know if he's listening, but he and one of the neighbors had taken a fence line out, and on that fence line there was a ditch, and so they just filled it in and planted corn on it, and so there's no more ditch, so the water that comes into his property stays on his property. And so it didn't have a pond on it when he bought it. I mean, a little one, but now it's got a big one. And I said, that could really work for you because he's basically homesteading. You could farm fish in there. And, that's what I would have done. I would have seen that water as kind of a blessing, but he tried to stop it and didn't work. So my place has ponds on it. And what I did, I've got about 4 ponds on my place, and 2 of them are pretty good size, is I bought bass and catfish, and I put in 12 each in 2 ponds. And when they went in, they were only about this big. But last summer, the boys fished, and they pulled out bass that were this big. So this year, they'll be even bigger. And when you start giving that some thought, if you're growing fish for your family, okay, I've just purchased some fish. I'm going to put it in there. So now I got to go and I got to buy fish food. Oh, the fish food is, $13 a pound. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. You want a species of fish, catfish. You can feed them a lot of stuff. You look online where you can feed them, and bass, you can feed them a lot of stuff. Then what we did is we made a minnow trap, and in the creeks and stuff around here, we'd go set the minnow trap out and we catch a ton of minnows, and then we take those minnows and we put them in our pond, and also there's minnows in there anyway. Another great thing was years ago, a guy didn't want to have it anymore, so he said, "Can I just throw these in your pond?" And I was like, "Okay." Those things proliferated like you would not believe. So what I could do and probably should do is my bigger pond, I should make it way bigger, right? Way bigger, like 2 acres, and stock that one with bass and catfish. And then my small pond that's deep, that's close to the house, I could just grow goldfish in there, and that's easy. There was so many in there that in the spring you'd look and it was just like a sheen of gold. There was so many in. So then what we did is we just threw the minnow trap in there and we pulled them out, and some of them were like this big. But what are you going to do with them? So that's kind of why we got the bass. We threw the bass in there, and that's why the bass got big so quick. It was because of all the goldfish in there. Now there's not so many, so I need to do something about that. So I think I would stay with bass, and I'd stay with catfish, and then grow my own feeder fish as well, or catch them and just, do a harvest on minnows and stuff. I think you probably have to look at the regulations on that, but yeah, and see what else you can feed them. I don't have any plans to do anything new this year, though. I mean, as far as that goes, I have some projects that I really want to do, and I don't want to have 15 projects. I want to have 2 that I can completely finish, so I don't have a bunch of stuff hanging out there.
All right, Charles is new since the Rogue Food Conference. Did you farm before active duty, or did you retire to a farm and start learning after your active duty?
No, I was farming when I was active duty, but it was just I didn't before. I wasn't a farm kid. Jill was kinda. Her grandfather had a farm, and this is a farm community she lives in. This is her stomping grounds. But when I was active duty, we were in town and hated it, and we moved to a place that had been a farm, but there was only the farmhouse and 13 acres left, and the gateway animals, I'm telling you, is chickens. That's where we started, and then it was got 4 little pigs, 4 baby pigs, and the rest is history. Then I got some calves and started learning stuff. I was real interested in it, and like my job with the Air Force was very structured, very no creativity. Don't you go getting creative on us. I mean, I've heard that so many times. You don't get creative in the military. You don't, not in the branch of service I was in. Maybe in the combat troops have to get creative, but where I wasn't getting creative. There's a certain way to do it, and that's how you do it, and you comply, and da 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 da. And I'm not into that. Military wasn't always fun for me, but when I got home and I got to my little farm, that's when I lived. So that's when I figured out that that's really what I want to do. And the projects that I have going this summer, there's some of them I have to do, but there's a couple of them that I just kind of came to me and I want to do really bad. So that's, and you can start this at any age. I was 44 when I moved here, and I'm going to be 60 in April. So it's coming. And I think between 60 and 70, that's really good. Plenty of energy left, plenty of health, and I can really make something of it during that time, like bring it to the next level of, I think that's where education comes in. Us educating, you, unless we can find somebody that can educate us. And occasionally we come across, bits and pieces, people that know things that we don't know, and we just suck them right up.
Okay, I have one last one.
Okay.
From Caitlin.
Caitlyn Jenner?
No.
Oh, disappointed.
That'd be fun. She's thinking of raising a piglet to 15 pounds and letting her neighbors finish it, but she's never raised pigs before. What breed should she get? Is 35 by 35 feet enough space? And any other advice?
Yeah, I've settled on Mangalitsa. I think it's a good breed of pig. The prices on them have come down. They're you can find them for $100 a piece for a wiener pig, and I think that that's fair. There was a time when wiener pigs were $30, but never Mangalitsas. They've never been that low. But a regular pig, I just couldn't get very excited about that anymore. I wouldn't, if that's all that was available to me, I would not raise pigs. I honestly would not after that last pig that I did up at Randy's house. I'm just not really that interested in pig meat like that. But Mangalitsa is different. It's red. It's rich. It's nutrient dense. I really like the fat. So Mangalitsa would be what I would pick. I think my second choice would probably be like a red wattle or a large black. And that's about all the experience I've had in breeds. The white pigs and the Berkshires and stuff, I'm not into them anymore. I don't like their attitudes, and I certainly don't like the meat. So 35 by 35, yeah, that's plenty of space. I would tell you that if you're going to do one pig, you might as well do two, because then they can hang out together. Otherwise, the animal is going to want to bond to somebody, and they'll probably like bond to you or one of your dogs or something like that, or if you have a dog. But if the poor pig's all alone, they're just not going to be content. So if you can get one, get two, and don't be doing any breeding right off the bat until you figure out that you want to do this. And if you have not built fences, then you need to get smart about building fences, because nothing's worse than a pig getting out and doing a lot of damage, because they are diggers. And if you have a garden, if you have a golf course, or if you just have a lawn, they will do some damage quick. You don't want that happening. It can be very frustrating if your animals get out. I don't even think about it anymore, because we've built good fences, and then we've worked with electric fence enough to we know how to maintain it. We know when it's working, we know when it's not, and how to service it and all that stuff. Very important to use electric. And then if you have two, scrounging for one pig is about the same as scrounging for two pigs. And you could sell one of them, getting yours, the pig that goes in your freezer, but no money. If you wind up shelling out a whole pile of money on feed and stuff like that, and done discipline that they do, and they spend a lot of money on commercial feed for them, and then processing, and but they do it every year, and we know because they're our customers here. We butcher them for them. So they, you do 100 chickens, it's $4 a piece to get them processed. There's $400 right there, plus all the feed for them. But you're feeding them commercial food. What's in that commercial food? I don't know. So they're not really thinking it out, I don't think. Anyway, can scrounge a lot of food. Did I answer her question all the way, you think?
I think so.
Any other, start in the spring if you can. If you start in the winter, it's kind of hard, but feeding pigs through the winter is not that big a deal. It really isn't. If you live someplace where there's snow and you've got a heritage breed, they'll eat snow. Not that hard.
Oh, Anthony, I didn't see your question. Please type it in quick.
Come on, Anthony.
Oh, about doing a collaboration with another homesteader. Didn't see it.
We didn't see it. Can you expound on that? Collaboration, what you would mean by a collaboration? Collaborating on what? Information, products, feed, fuel, help.
If you were going, Jonathan mentioned finding, funds to do a perimeter fence around their 15 acres. How would you go about that obstacle?
Finding funds?
Well, he just said they want to put the fence up,
Yeah.
but they're both working, and it's a challenge to find money to do everything. So
Yeah. Well, if you have a rich relative, that's an option. Bank robbery is already there. Knock off a liquor store. There's all those options, or you could, out of every pay period, I assume you're both working, or Jill said you're working, set aside X amount of dollars, whatever you can. And first of all, price out the fence that you want to build. And you're going to want the best fence that you can get, unless you're just going to be building up that property to flip it for another property. And then maybe you wouldn't. And you have to decide what kind of fence you want. I do woven wire fence, and I swear by it. For cattle, I probably wouldn't. I would probably just use barbed wire, but I would still put electric on the top of it. But if you're it depends what you want to fence in. If you want to make a perimeter fence, then just build it incrementally. 330 feet of 30-inch woven wire is $150. And then if you're going to use fence posts, each one of those is going to set you back about $4, and they have to be put in about every 15 feet. So you'll want to pencil it out and then find out how much you need to fill in, and then just do it You can only build it incrementally anyway. You're not going to build it in a weekend. Each 330 feet is going to take you some time, especially when you're just getting started. And then you got to have the tools to do it. So depending on your ground and where you live, you can check with us on that, and I could tell you, well, this is what I do in that area. And then you have to have the tools to do it. So fence posts or post hole diggers. Don't go renting anything like that. That's dumb. Post pounder, and you should have those. That should be part of your homestead. Get the best ones you can find, and they'll last you for the rest of your life. And then you can pass them on to your kids. Fencing pliers, hammer, staples, stretcher, which would be a come along, and then a stretcher, a fence stretcher. They make them, but you can make your own. I built my own, and I've used it for 15 years now. And then learning how to do it. That's probably the biggest part of it, is learning how to build a corner post. And I think the way we do it really is the best way to do it. I've seen a lot of other techniques.
We're gonna have a course up on your course that you made last year. We're
Yeah.
gonna have that up in the next couple weeks. So
Yeah.
I'll let you know when that is.
Fencing is so important, and the basic skills carry over into so many different processes, that the way I would like to do this, and we've started on this part of it, but okay, on the Baker's Green Acres page, I want to have a download there. So how to build a corner post, and it's how I do it. And I'm not going to show you how Bruce Jenner does it. I'll show you how I do it. And I'll tell you why I do it this way. And this is after doing it a bunch of other ways. But now, if you go on this farm, all of our corner posts are a certain way. And that's how I'm going to do it. If somebody else comes up with a better way, then I'll switch. But the way I'm doing it, I think, is the best way that I've come across. And I've seen a lot of different, I've taken fencing classes. Actually, I took a grazing class, and one of the blocks in there was how to build fences. And honestly, the way that they showed us to build fences, I'm not going to do it that way because it's not as good as the way we were shown how to do it.
You learned from a Montana rancher who
I
was
learned-
setting them on bare rock.
Yeah, I learned from a Montana rancher, and he had to put it in really tough ground and really tough environment, and super, super long runs of fence too, which I don't have here because the ground here is really fertile and our farms are not, miles and miles and miles. My farm here is 80 acres, which is big, but it's not like a Montana farm. So I think our way is the best way to go. So I'll have that up, or somebody will have that up on our page, and it's going to be a download. So you can say, okay, I want that. You throw a little bit of money at it, not much, and then you got it, and you got it forever. You can reference it. And then for the paltry sum that you'll pay, you're getting all of the cumulative experience that will be yours then. And maybe from there you'll say, hey, if I just did this, or if I put it 6 inches further this way, it would be a better situation. See, these are all the things that we're not sharing back and forth that we should, to really hone this technology to a really fine point. And this is the way that it used to be, And so we need to reinvigorate it. We need to make farming great again. By the way, people have asked about behind me. I did kind of change that around. That's kind of a monument. That is a moose antler that my brother-in-law found up in Canada, gave it to one of my kids, and my kid gave it to me. And then that is a replica of a Pennsylvania rifle, like one that would have been used in the Revolutionary War. And then there's a powder horn there, and then there's a plaque that says something about how special family is that my daughter-in-law made for me. So I kind of put that together one day, and I like that. I'm kind of proud of that. That bag that's hanging there would be what the bearer of that rifle would have on him. It's called a possibles bag. So he would have his ammo in there and spare shot and stuff like that, caps and stuff like that, spare flints. That one is not a flintlock. That's a percussion cap. But a lot of the Pennsylvania rifles were actually converted from flintlocks to percussion, in the years following the Revolutionary War. Kind of interesting. But those rifles were around for a long, long time. Pennsylvania rifles, sometimes referred to as Kentucky long rifles, but the correct terminology would actually be a Pennsylvania rifle. They were made here in the United States, and they were made under license. In the United States, interestingly enough, they couldn't build muskets, which a musket would be like a 68 caliber assault rifle of its day, and it would have the ability to fix a bayonet on it, and you'd load 3 or 4 balls in it, 60 caliber balls, 65 caliber balls, and that was the military weapon of the time, kind of like a people gun, where they referred to that as a squirrel gun. So you could shoot a squirrel with it. You could also shoot a white-tailed deer, but you could also reach out to 300 yards with it and take an officer off of his horse with it too. So that's why, the barbaric colonists did not know how to actually engage in warfare, where you the enlisted people line up on either side of the field and slaughter each other. They were saying the hell with this, and they were picking out the officers off of their horses at 300 yards. So, little history lesson there. I think it's kind of interesting. How are we doing for time?
It's 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock. We've gone 2 hours, and I didn't feel good. All right, so a lot of people stayed with us too. So this is Mark from Baker's Green Acres. Thanks everybody for coming out. We'll see you next week. I'll keep the videos coming up on the tribe. If you haven't joined the tribe, it's the Anyone Can Farm Tribe Facebook page. Please come on along and contribute to it. And Jeff Beauchamp, I'm not going to get into it now, but the thing that you built was really cool, but I have some suggestions for you. I'll talk about it next week. Au revoir. All right.
It's got to just slide. Oh, no, you got it.